Well, folks, it's hard to believe we're just mere days away from the second anniversary of that grotesque massacre that happened in Israel on October 7th, 2023. And what have we seen these past couple of years? Well, inexplicably, an increase in anti-Semitism. And not only that, anti-Semitism manifesting itself in the most unlikely places. And I speak of the Law Society of Ontario, the Toronto Public Library, and even a certain immigration consultant. But blowing the whistle on that trio is my guest. His name is Bryant Greenbaum. He is self-described as a Zionist human rights lawyer based here in Toronto. So, Bryant, let's get right to business. Starting with the Law Society of Ontario, you wrote a piece for Honest Reporting in which you're saying you are taking the governing body of lawyers in this province to the Human Rights Tribunal. Why is that?
I am taking the Law Society of Ontario to the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal because they accredited a speaker who has espoused what I consider to be anti-Semitic language at a protest, and more specifically praising the October 7th paraglider attack.
We stand for Palestinians who are getting free today! Woo!
Let's go.
How intense is the spirit to get free? How deep is the spirit to get free? How beautiful is the spirit to get free that Palestinians literally learned how to fly on hang gliders? Woo!
So who was the speaker, Bryant?
The speaker's name was Harsha Walla, and she was invited by the Law Union of Ontario. And they're not a union, they're a civil society loose group of individuals who do work on some good stuff like homelessness and racial profiling. So they do work on some good stuff, but they've got on board with anti-Israel rhetoric. And more specifically, this organization invited this Harsha Walla to speak, well knowing that Jews would not want to attend such an event. And the Jewish bar was basically going to be excluded because it would be distasteful for the Jewish bar to attend this accredited CPD EDI.
But Brian, I would argue, Jewish or not, why in the world would the Law Society or the Law Union invite a speaker praising the greatest slaughter of Jews post-Holocaust? This was a horrific terrorist act. And I mean, I am baffled by that. Would they invite a neo-Nazi to address the membership, the rank and file, being an apologist for Adolf Hitler? What's the unspoken story of all the people they could invite in, that they would invite this person to glorify that day of atrocity?
Well, the interesting part of this whole thing really is that the Law Society is content with their decision to accredit it and to not revoke that accreditation. And I've learned that through their pleadings, through their arguments in the Human Rights Tribunal complaint. So basically what they're saying is exactly what you have just proffered. They are basically saying the gates are open. This law union invites someone who is, who some would say is unsavory, for continuing professional development. The Law Society accredits that. And basically what the Law Society is saying is any group can invite whoever you want. You want to invite KKK members for CPD? You can. So,
well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, wait 1 second.
Okay.
I'll make you a deal.
All right.
If you know a KKK member,
okay,
and you arrange for me to meet him, I'm willing to apply to the Law Society for accreditation on that.
Interesting. For the record, folks, I don't know any KKK
Either do I.
members.
Either do I.
Yeah.
Either do I.
Okay, then. So, needless to say, what was the outcome of that presentation? I mean, did people get up and walk out? Was there heckling? Or was she preaching to the converted?
She was probably preaching to the converted, but I didn't go. I'm Jewish. I was not going to attend an accredited Law Society of Ontario continuing professional development lecture. I was not going to attend that when the speaker praised the paragliders on October 7th. I, as a Jew, and from my understanding, all of my Jewish colleagues in the Jewish bar weren't interested in attending either. Sure, there could have been a few sprinklings of anti-Zionist Jews who thought it was cool, but the majority of the Jewish bar felt it was repugnant and would not want to step foot in that venue.
Yeah, we're pretty much free speech absolutists here at Rebel News, Brian, but I've always said there is a line in the sand, and that line is when you advocate harm, violence, even death to an individual or an identifiable group of individuals. And that's the line being crossed here. I'm sorry, if you are praising terrorists for massacring mostly innocent Israelis, because there were people from other countries there that were caught up in the carnage, that is completely offside.
But I must interrupt and say one thing, though.
Okay.
As a lawyer, that is offensive, and I believe in free speech too. I even believe that the encampments at the University of Toronto, to a certain extent, were legitimate forms of nonviolent disobedience, and Martin Luther King was an expert in that. So, but what I am saying from a lawyer's point of view is, and from a member of the bar, is once you cross the rubric into asking for accreditation, you're basically telling the Law Society, please endorse this speaker, please endorse this lecture. And knowing that a lot of the Jewish bar in Ontario would find that offensive and would not attend the event. Right. So is the Law Society basically saying, members, invite who you want, do some KKK CPD. And that sounds pretty good, KKK CPD, and do as you wish, apply for accreditation, we don't care, we trust you. Well, I don't trust who undertook this conference, the Law Union of Ontario, and I don't trust the Law Society anymore as a lawyer. And that's sad. I'm a lawyer, a human rights lawyer, if I could backtrack for a moment. Yeah. I'm a human rights lawyer. As you introduced me, a Zionist human rights lawyer. Yes. I have taught international human rights law at Osgoode Hall Law School for many years. I love the law. I love international human rights law. I've taught it at Osgoode Hall for many years. I worked in Congo. I worked in South Africa on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I have worked with Indigenous issues, child welfare issues at the Ontario Human Rights Commission. I can go on with my accolades. Okay. I'm a true human rights advocate. Yes. But I'll tell you one thing. If the Law Society feels that this is appropriate, I've lost faith in them, and I can't even, when I ever have to pay my dues or file a report, it stings.
Well, I can tell you, Brian, from a lot of lawyers have reached out to me over the last several months with complaints about the wokeness of the Law Society of Ontario, which, by the way, didn't it used to be called the Law Society of Upper Canada? And maybe because of wokeism, that was too colonialist, they replaced Upper Canada with Ontario. But here's the thing, to the heart of your matter, where does it stand right now in terms of the Human Rights Tribunal hearing this?
So right now, I'm waiting for an interim order. And this is going to be the thing that knocks you off your stool, and you're going to not believe this. I asked the Human Rights Tribunal for an interim order to have a confidentiality order for my home address. And the Human Rights Tribunal refused to redact my home address, part of the confidentiality order, despite Harshawala giving a speech at a protest prior to it becoming a terrorist organization. The speech where she was giving, Samadoun was the organizer of this speech. She gave a speech, and that later became a terrorist organization. I asked the Human Rights Tribunal, redact my home address, please.
Based on personal safety.
Personal safety of me. Yeah. There's synagogues near my home. There's. I said to the Human Rights Tribunal, there's synagogues. I have a young family. I don't want a terrorist organization getting my home address. And the Law Society, at least I give them credit, said we take no position. Okay. But the Law Union said, this guy's a fake. He's got nothing to worry about, terrorists or otherwise, the law union said. So that's going through the process, this interim order. I've appealed that confidentiality ruling that says I can't have my address redacted. That's being appealed. But the next step will likely be is the law union and the Law Society will file motions to summarily dismiss this matter based upon no reasonable prospect of success. So any big organization, any David versus Goliath, I'm fighting the Law Society, I'm fighting the Law Union of Ontario, which has 400 lawyers, and little old me. They're going to bring motions, they're going to try to mess me up, and they're going to do one thing for sure, is they're going to claim that this has no reasonable prospect of success. I say to them, give me a break.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.